Many aspirants believe that UPSC mains is a test of knowledge alone, but that's not the case. Thousands of candidates read the same books, newspapers, and reports, yet only a few score exceptionally well. The difference often lies not in what they know, but in how they present it. Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. In today's session, we will talk about the art of answer writing. I will tell you how you should be writing good answers in UPSC mains examination. UPSC mains is essentially an examination of your ability to think, analyze, and communicate within a limited time and word limit. Therefore, answer writing is a skill that must be consciously developed, and not just after clearing prelims, but since day one of your preparation. Today, we'll understand the framework of effective answer writing. Let's get started. So there are few steps. The moment you see a question, you should be following those steps. Step number one is decode the question, which has three further sub-steps. First is keywords. What are keywords? Keywords are the main words that tell you what you should be talking about in your answer. For example, in this question, India is described as a federal system with a unitary bias examined. The keywords would be federal system, unitary bias, and these two related to India. So you have to focus on these parts only. Second is directive words. Directive words sort of give you direction as to what you are supposed to write. For example, here the directive word is examine. Directive words would look like examine, discuss, critically analyze, assess. We will talk about different directive words and what you should be writing in them in towards the end of today's session. Next is demand of the question. Because of keywords and directive words, you would understand the demand of the question, what you should write and what you should not write. For example, if there is a question which says critically analyze, in that case, you have to answer both the pros and the cons of that particular issue. But if the question says highlight, enumerate, or underline, in such cases, you just need to focus on the bullet points. You don't have to go in detail. You don't have to examine everything. You don't have to explain everything. So you need to understand what is the demand of the question to know what you should write and to know what you should avoid, because you can know everything, but if you keep writing anything that comes to your mind, you will start answering some different question rather than the question that has been asked. Next step is create a mental framework. Now, this is a mistake I see a lot of students making. That is, the moment they see the question, their first instinct is to start writing answers because they feel like that will save a lot of time. But what that does instead is, first, it wastes time, and second, they start answering something else because they did not make a framework in their head as to what they are going to write. They start writing anything that is related to that keyword. So what you need to do is, the moment you see the question, take 30 seconds and then think in your head what you're going to write. For example, a generic framework is, there has to be an introduction, there will be body, and there will be conclusion, right? So you should take 30 seconds. First, the moment you read the question, underline the keyword so that you know what you have to write. Second, see the directive so that you know what you should be writing and what you should be avoiding. Third, think about how will you start the answer. In introduction, there are a lot of ways we'll discuss. Second, body, what are the dimensions you are going to cover? You can think about the bullet points. Next, conclusion. How would you conclude it? Will you give a way forward? Will you just sum up the argument? How will you conclude it? Right? So, keywords and the directive words are very, very important. Directives are very important, and we will discuss different directives at the end of the session. The next step is write a strong introduction. Now, how would you write a strong introduction? I've seen there are a lot of students, when they start writing an answer, they face this problem many times. That is, they don't know how to start an answer. The introduction part becomes very difficult. But this is the easiest part of the answer. How? All you need to do is, you have underlined the keywords. If you don't get anything in your head at that point, you can simply define the keyword. So you can start with definition based introduction, or like in the previous question, you could have written constitutional introduction. Like there it talked about federal system with unitary bias, so I could have started with that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states, article 1. I could have started with there, that we have a peculiar federal system. Then I could also start fact-based introduction, I could write fact-based introduction, or you could write something from history, historical background you can pick. You can write court judgments, you can write quotations. If you don't find anything else, you can write current affair news, or you can also write data. So there are so many ways to start an introduction, and the introduction has to be maximum 2-3 lines. So it is not much. You can easily do that. So you can start with it, and then you can write a line that connects your introduction to the body, right? The next step is, this is step number 4, substantiate your arguments. Very important. See, you can write anything, but if you don't substantiate your argument by giving examples or constitutional provisions or data, statistics, case study, examples from everyday life, or example from your different subjects, GS subjects, or examples from current affairs, you have to write something as evidence of what you are saying. If you don't do that, then it is just a very generic answer which anybody could have written. Then what is the difference between a student who has prepared for this exam specifically and somebody, a layman person? There's no difference. So anything you say, your arguments must be substantiated. You can use constitutional provisions, you can use committee recommendations, government reports, Supreme Court judgments, data, statistics, case studies, examples from current affairs, or examples from your life also if you don't find anything, in essays especially. But write something to substantiate your argument. For example, instead of writing women face discrimination, this is a very generic statement, anybody could say it. But if I write, according to the periodic labor force survey, female labor force participation remains lower than that of men. Now this highlights what? Persistent gender inequality. Now tell me which answer looks like it has been written by somebody who prepared for the examination. The latter one, of course, because it is substantiated with a survey. So it is important to substantiate your argument, otherwise they are generally just very generic answers or abstract ideas. Next is present your answer effectively. Now I cannot emphasize this enough. See, you can know everything, you could have prepared well, but if you can't present it well, it will not land. The answer will not land and you will not get any marks. It will not fetch you good marks. It could have. Right? So how could you present it effectively? First, do not write very big paragraphs. Rather than writing big paragraphs, it's important that you write short paragraphs. You can write short paragraphs, one heading, and then you can write 2-3 lines about it. Then heading, you can write 2-3 lines about it. So heading, subheading method. This is not just bullet points, but this is not paragraph also. A mix of them, a hybrid model that works perfectly. And in that also, it's important that you highlight the important words. The words that you want that examiner should notice, highlight them. The words that are directly related to your questions, highlight them. But there is a nuance here, of course. If you are highlighting something and you make grammatical mistake, you make a spelling mistake, or that word is not related to your question, then that will also be highlighted. So be very sure that whatever you are highlighting is apt for the question, it is grammatically correct, and the spelling is correct also. But highlight important terms or important line if you feel like. This makes the work of examiner very easy. And all you need to do is, after you have gained all the knowledge, present it such that the life of examiner while checking your answer becomes easy. You will get marks. Next is, you can use flowcharts, tabular data, or tables. And very important, sometimes what happens is, I've seen a few answers where, because you have to write in 2 pages, let's say, and you know a lot about that question, what you try to do is, in this page itself, this is how you write. Don't do that. What is the problem with this? Just because you know everything, you don't have to write everything. It should look presentable. If it is too crowded, then also the life of examiner is going to be difficult. I told you, there's only one mantra for this. You have to make the life of examiner easy and you will get marks. So use adequate spacing. Do not overcrowd everything. Of course. So what you can do is write in short paragraphs, use headings and subheadings, then underline important terms, flowchart, diagrams, maps. You can use wherever possible, and use adequate spacing. Leave adequate spacing so that it looks presentable. And there's one more point. Let's say some students have this difficulty that their handwriting is not that good. Now see, if your handwriting is not very beautiful, it does not matter. It should be such that the examiner should be able to read it properly. If it is not that, then you have to work on it. So make sure that your handwriting is such that the person who's checking your paper can understand everything that you have written. Or there's a trick to it. You can practice it every day. Apart from that, if you feel like still your handwriting is not up to the mark, then try to increase spacing. It still looks neat if there is more spacing. Next, maintain balance, of course. See, whenever you write the conclusion or you write any viewpoint, do not take extreme stance. So, for example, if there is a question or reservation, you can't say reservation is completely wrong. Or you can't say this is the only solution, because I can justify reservation. I can justify it using Article 14. I can say that it is constitutional, but I can't say that it is the only solution. Or I can't say that it is hampering merit. So this is completely wrong. Take a middle path, a balanced approach. So you can explain that it promotes social justice, but at the same time, there are problems, concerns about efficiency and merit. So reforms are required. See, this is a very balanced approach. So always maintain balance in your answer. Do not take extreme stances. And conclusion part, very important. Now see, whenever you write a conclusion, again, you can get confused about it. So what you can do, very easy method is, whatever you have written in the argument, just sum it up in 2 lines, right? Or you can simply suggest a way forward, but keep a forward looking approach. Do not look very pessimistic in your conclusion, and do not miss it also. So you can't think it is a 10 marker question, I've already written so much, so conclusion is not required. Do not do that. Even if you have to write just 1 line conclusion, it is fine, but write a conclusion, because that sets the message, that sets the tone that the question is complete now and it looks complete. So write a meaningful conclusion. If you don't find anything, then you can simply summarize what you have written in the body, or you can write a way forward, or you can write a balanced, diplomatic sort of approach. Next, okay, before we move to the last part of our session, which is directive words, and I'll tell you how to decode the directive words. A very important announcement: from 18th July to 22nd July, we have our sale going on up to 50% on all live online courses. We have all the courses related to UPSC, PCS, teaching exams, judiciary exams, SSC exams, CUET exams, and right now the prices are very, very affordable. So if you wish to join us, please call on this number 87501 87501. Now we are at the last session, last part of our session, which is directive words. Again, extremely important, because if you don't understand directive words, you will not understand what you actually have to write in the examination, in the question. The first is underline, highlight, or enumerate. Now this means that you just have to write the bullet points. You don't have to go in details. You just need to write the lines, whatever the bullet points are. So here you only give concise points in bullet form. You don't go about explaining every word. That is not important. You don't go about explaining every line. That is not important. Next is describe. When you describe something, you tell what it is and how it functions. That is what description is all about. So in describe, you will write what it is and you will also write how it functions. Next is explain, elaborate, elucidate. Now I'm sure you must have understood the word explain itself. Explain means that you clarify a concept or a phenomenon, right? So here you will answer what, why, and how. Here we only answered what and how. In explain, elaborate, and elucidate, we also write why. We also answer why. Next is examine. In examine, what you do is you break any question in different parts and you try to examine, analyze every part of it. So you break the topic in different components. You can write the political component, political dimension, economic dimension, social dimension, and then analyze each aspect in examine. Next is assess or evaluate. When you evaluate something, you give a judgment. Right? That's what is evaluation, right? So here also in evaluate, you judge the value, significance, or effectiveness of something. So in here you will write both strengths and weaknesses and then provide a balanced conclusion or judgment. Next is analyze. In analyze, what you do? You analyze the causes, you analyze the consequences, stakeholders, and interconnections. What does that mean? In analyze, we again separate the issue into several parts. So here parts are causes, consequences, stakeholders, and we see how they are related to each other. Next is estimate. Now in estimate, what we do? We make an assessment or prediction. So here also we use facts, trends, evidence to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. Now see, the basic structure of an answer is the same, basic framework is the same, but because of these words, there will be small changes in every answer, right? And that is why these one-liners are important for you, so that you can make those changes in your answer. Next is to what extent or how far. Now, as the name suggests, when I say to what extent, that means I will tell the extent and then I also tell where it is not going to work, right? So here first we'll explain why the statement is valid, to what extent, and then discuss what are its limitations or exceptions where it is not valid, and then finally state the extent to which you agree about it. You'll give your opinion, how much do you agree about it. Next is comment. In comment also, when I say I do not need your comments, what does that mean? That means I'm trying to ignore your viewpoint. So in comment, you give your viewpoint. So first you will explain the issue, then you'll provide your viewpoint, but for that you will substantiate it using examples or evidence. Next is discuss. What do you do in discuss? You discuss different dimensions. So here different dimensions are there, arguments are there, viewpoints are there. You present all of them, and then because it's sort of like discussion, you can understand it like there are few friends, they are discussing something. So you present different dimensions, arguments, viewpoints, and then you give a balanced conclusion. Next is critically examine or critically analyze. The moment you see the word critical, that means you have to talk about both positives and negatives also. So here you will discuss both positives and negative aspects, and when you give your conclusion, your answer cannot be entirely supportive or entirely against. Again, give a balanced answer. Next is compare and contrast. What is the difference? Compare means we mainly focus on common features. These are the things that are common. In contrast, we mainly focus on the things that are not common, that are different. So in compare, we focus on common features supported by examples or a table, of course. Or in contrast, we highlight the distinctions, the differences clearly. And again, you can write in tabular form or you can write in small heading, subheading paragraphs also. So these are the directive words. As I told you, answer writing is an art, it's a skill, and you should be working on this skill since day one of your preparation. So I hope I have made some contribution in clearing what you should be doing in your answer writing. In all our classes, in my classes at least, I always bring up a question where we discuss the mains answers, or I'll give you a practice question and we discuss how the framework should look like. So attend this class, and after this attend the other sessions where I give you the mains practice question. Practice those questions and I promise you'll get better at it the more you practice. So that's it for today's session. Thank you so much for joining in. I really hope you enjoyed the lecture. If you have anything to say, you can always write them down in the comment section below. Until next time, take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.